Reports have come out today that Kemba Walker is likely to be leaving the Boston Celtics. They've mutually agreed, in a sense, to part ways, although it is likely going to be via trade, so it's not a mutual agreement of a buyout or anything of the sorts. But there's just a mutual agreement that Boston want to get rid of Kemba. Kemba wants to leave Boston. And this isn't unsurprising to me. I expected there to be a move between these two parties this summer, as it is. Kemba Walker still has 2 more years under his contract at $36 and $37.653 million per year. That second year being a player option. And unless Kemba really wants to chase a ring, I don't see why he opts out of that, considering there's no shot he gets that on the open market. Now, Kemba Walker is still a quality starting point guard in the NBA, but he is not at the levels that he was in Charlotte. That's just a fact. His injuries have caught up to him, his age has caught up to him, and he just doesn't offer the same level of production anymore. Now, he's never been an overly efficient player. Now, lots of that in Charlotte was due to the fact that he had to take a lot of shots, but it hasn't improved at all in a new role in Boston, in a lesser role in Boston, and he just really isn't that all-star caliber player anymore. And for someone that isn't a great creative point guard, more of a scoring point guard, that causes issues for him to be successful on a contending team, something that Boston would like to do in the near future with Jason Tatum and Tatum Brown on their roster. And so with that being said, it looks like he is going to be traded this summer, and we're going to be talking about some of the potential places he could go. Most notably, as you can see, Detroit, the Thunder, and the New York Knicks, because of course he is getting that high salary, and so he needs to be traded somewhere that is going to have a fair chunk of cap space. First off, the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks only have $55 million in committed cap space coming into the season, and so they have plenty of money to bring him in. Problem being is they also have to re-sign a lot of players. They only have 8 players on contract going into next season, one of which is Norvel Pelle, who may not come back. Another one is Luca Vildoza, who also may not come back. So they really only have 6 players that are rotational guys who are guaranteed to come back into the team next year. Actually, I shouldn't even say rotational, because one of them are Kevin Knox. So they really only have Randall, Barrett, Obi Toppin, Quickly, and Mitch Robinson that are under team control, that are key parts of the team for next year. And so that $55 million also has to be filled up by a lot of players. They have the likes of D. Rose, Ntilikina Burks, Peyton, Noel, Bullock, and Taj Gibson, all who are free agents in this upcoming summer. With that being said, they definitely still have the cap space to take on someone like Kemba. That gives them a veteran guard, someone that would take a bit of the onus off of Derrick Rose. It would allow Derrick Rose to do what he was brought in to do, which is be a sixth-man scorer off of the bench. Allow Kemba to be a starter, who would give some more help for RJ Barrett and Julius Randle on the offensive end, which is really what the Knicks need. Their offense is the issue. Now, Kemba obviously brings down their defense a lot, but Thibodeau, no doubt, will help hide him in his great defensive schemes, and they'll still be a good defensive team, even with him on the roster. And so I think it's something that definitely raises the ceiling for the Knicks. They don't really have to match any salaries here. They can get rid of a bit of salary, but they have a lot of cap space, so it's not really an issue, and so they could definitely bring him in. And these are the type of teams that are going to have to bring in Kemba Walker. It's either going to be teams like the Pistons or OKC, which you're going to discuss next, that have a lot of cap space and are just hoping to bring him in, and maybe a second-round pick or a first-round pick if necessary, just to take on that salary. Or someone like the Knicks that are hoping to add a piece to get them up another level, that also have a lot of cap space, more as a complementary piece than a core piece to their team. Problem being, of course, is that Boston are probably going to have to get rid of some assets to get rid of him. I don't know if he's a plus asset anymore, and that's why the Oklahoma City Thunder are an interesting discussion. They, of course, have plenty of cap space. They only have $55 million committed for next year's spending, and that is with most of their players under the roster under contract. The only guys currently on the roster that are not under contract for next season is Tony Bradley, who they will most likely resign, Mike Muscala, who they probably won't, and Sviatoslav Mikhailchuk, who they, of course, acquired from the Pistons this year. I most likely butchered his name. I apologize for that, but they will most likely bring him back after he had a very good stint with OKC as well this year. And so I think OKC are really interesting because they've made some trades like this in the past few years to acquire some older players with a second-round pick or a couple of second-round picks or a first-round pick attached, to then flip them for assets later, or just to acquire some picks regardless to just add to the stockpile of Sam Presti's war chest of picks. And so there's one of two ways that OKC could make this trade. Of course, they still do have the big contract of Al Horford, and so they could flip Al Horford back to Boston for the Kemba Walker contract. This would still be a positive for Boston from a contract standpoint. Kemba Walker is projected to be paid $36 million next year, and Al Horford $27. So they would save $9 million, but I still don't know if they're going to be willing to take that big of a salary back for another 2 seasons. But with that being said, it could still happen. But OKC could also just take the salary on regardless for pretty much nothing, or maybe in addition to some picks for pretty much nothing. And so this is definitely an interesting landing spot, and something that Sam Presti and OKC will probably entertain if they can get some picks back in addition to Kemba Walker. If they aren't getting any draft capital back and it's just an addition of Kemba Walker, in that scenario, it's just adding on and taking away minutes from the young players, and so I don't think this is something they will be interested in. The last option that I'm going to talk about in this video is the Detroit Pistons. A team that is definitely improving and is the brightest they've looked in a couple of years. Jeremy Grant, of course, had a very good season for them. Surprised me a lot, and I think a lot of people in the NBA community. I expected that $20 million a year price tag was going to be way too much for him and was going to be a flop and just an overpay. But he surprised me. He played very well. He averaged around 20 points per game. And he's definitely not the number one on a winning team. There's a reason why he's the number one in Detroit, and Detroit were one of the worst teams in the league. But no doubt he has shown that he continues to improve his game year in, year out in his NBA career, and is definitely more than just the role player he was in Denver. But outside of that, they have Killian Hayes, they have Saddiq Bey, who I think has a lot of potential, as well as Isaiah Stewart, amongst others. But they definitely still could add on some salary. They have $102 million committed for next season, but Corey Jones just making 12.6 of that. Mason Plumlee's making $8 million of that, and so they could definitely free up $20 million quite comfortably. Jeremy Grant is also owed $20 million, and it's not completely irrational to think that he gets traded. So again, if the Pistons could add some future assets onto this team along with Kemba Walker, then that's something they could do. He can come in and give some mentorship to Killian Hayes and Saddiq Bey as they continue to develop as perimeter players, and so it's definitely something that the Pistons could look into as well. I don't think they would be as intrigued by it as the Knicks and OKC would be. I think Tom Thibodeau and the Knicks would love to have a veteran point guard that is not Elfrid Payton to start and let Derrick Rose be the true sixth man. And I think if Sam Presti can add a couple more picks to his war chest of draft choices over the next few years, he would absolutely savor the fact that he can do that. So that is my thoughts on the Kemba Walker trade movers. Let me know what you guys think and where you think he could end up outside of Boston. Only 2 years into this deal and likely 2 more years to go. It looks like an overpay when it happened. It's definitely an overpay now. But let me know where you guys think he could end up for the back end of his contract. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new for more consistent NBA content like this throughout the playoffs and going into the off season. Hope you guys have a great yesterday, and I will see you guys in the next one.